is a Bible Minute, a weekly study where we look at Revelation. We're almost done with Revelation. We are in week 29, so we're getting close to the end. There's only 22 chapters in Revelation, so it's kind of time to start thinking about what we're going to do next. So if you're following along at home, shoot me a message. Let me know what you want to do next. Do we want to stay in the New Testament? Do we want to do the Old Testament? Do we want to do a topical study? I don't know. Be thinking about that. We got a few more weeks left, but yeah, it's coming. We are in Revelation 18 this week. This is going to be a relatively straightforward study. If you remember last week, we talked about the whore of Babylon. And we talked about essentially she is the perversion of God's goodness. And it's used to cause benefits to some people, even though they're not really benefits, at the expense of others. We'll talk about it more, but essentially last week we met her. We saw that she is the one who is paired with Rome, the beast of the devil, which, the beast is a personification of empire. And so she is kind of like the one who's hand in hand with the beast. She's another tool of the monster, of the devil. And so we've been studying through this. We've been making our way to the end. And again, the whole point of Revelation is that God is going to deal out justice, right? Those factors of evil, the sources of evil that exist in the world, He's going to deal with. And so this last section, the war story, if you remember our outline, it's really kind of like personifying evil, personifying the way evil works, the way it functions in the world, how it perverts the goodness of God. And that's really what we're going to focus on today, is how evil truly is a perversion of what God created to be good. And so we're going to read all of 18. It's kind of lengthy. And then we'll talk about what it means. And it's pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and read it, and we'll go from there. So starting in verse 1, it says, "After this, I saw another angel coming down from heaven with great authority. The earth was flooded with light from his glory. He shouted in a strong voice, and this is what he said: 'Babylon the Great has fallen. She has fallen. She has become a place for demons to live, a refuge for every unclean spirit, a refuge for every unclean bird, a refuge for every unclean, hateful monster.' All the nations drank from the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth committed fornication with her, and all the traders of the earth became rich from the power of her luxury. Then I heard another voice from heaven, and this is what it said: 'Come out of her, my people, so that you don't become embroiled in her sins, so that you don't receive any of her plagues. Her sins are piled up to the sky, and God has remembered her wickedness. Pay her back as she has paid others. Give her double again for all her deeds. Mix her double dose in her cup, the cup in which she has mixed her poisons. She made herself glorious and lived in luxury, balanced that by giving her torture and sorrow. She said in her heart, I'm the queen, I'm on the throne, I'm not a widow, I'm never going to be a mourner. Therefore her plagues will come in a single day, death, mourning, and famine, and she will be burned with fire, because God, the Lord, who judges her, is strong. The kings of the earth who committed fornication with her and shared her luxury will weep and lament over when they see the smoke from her fire. They will stand far off, fearful of her tortures. Alas, alas, they will say, the great city, Babylon, the powerful city, your judgment has come in a single hour. The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, because nobody will buy their cargo anymore. Their cargo of gold and silver, of precious stones and pearls, fine linen and purple, silk and scarlet, all the sweet-smelling wood, carved ivory, vessels of expensive wood, brass, iron, marble, cinnamon, oriental spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, wine, olive oil, fine flour, wheat, cattle, sheep, horses, chariots, and bodies. Yes, human lives. All the fruit for which you longed has gone from you. All your luxuries and sparkling objects have been destroyed. You won't find them anymore. The merchants who sold these things and who made themselves rich from her will stand a long way off for fear of her tortures. They will weep and mourn and say, Alas, alas, the great city! It was clothed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, decked out in gold, precious stones and pearls. But in a single hour such great wealth has been destroyed. All the master mariners, all those who ply their ships to and fro, all sailors and all who do business on the sea, stand a long way off and shouted out when they saw the smoke of her fire. Who is like the great city, they said. They threw dust on their heads and shouted out, weeping and mourning. Alas, alas, they said, the great city, everyone who had ships on the sea could get rich from her wealth, but in a single hour she has become a desert. Celebrate over her, heaven, and you holy ones, apostles and prophets, because God has passed against her the sentence she passed against you. Then a strong angel picked up a rock like a huge millstone and hurled it into the sea with these words, Babylon, the great city, will be thrown down like that with a splash and will never be seen again. Never again will people hear the sound of harps, musicians, flute players, and trumpeters in you. Never again will there be any skilled workmen plying their trade in you. Never again will people hear the sound of the mill in you. Never again will anyone see the light of a lamp in you, and never again will anyone hear the voice of the bridegroom and the bride in you. Your merchants were the mighty ones of the earth, and all the nations were deceived by your magic. In her has been found the blood of prophets and God's holy ones, and all those who have been slaughtered on the earth. So this seems like a really long chapter to simply say Babylon was destroyed. And so when John and Jesus giving this message to John, when they make things longer, there's a reason. If we stand from the point of view of those first century Christians who are suffering at the hands of empire, which empire is the beast of the whore of Babylon, of perversion, we have to step back and look at it and say, okay, what message would they have heard with such a long and drawn out chapter that simply says she's gone, she dies quick, right? What was the point here? There is profit in perversion. Right? God created everything to be good. Right? He created the mountains, he created the valleys, he created the sun, he created the moon, he created people, he created the way that everything works. Right? He created the rain system, he created the tide system. I mean, he created the reproductive systems of every living being. He created all those things, and all of those things were good. He created us to be creative. And making money is not bad. Having a trade is not bad. Getting married is not bad. Sex is not bad. Building things is not bad. Expanding what you have, making money, all those things are good things. But from the beginning, from the moment Satan interacted with humanity, his tactic has not been to try to convince us of outright lies. His tactic has been to convince us of perversions of truth. To take what is true and twist it to where it's not true anymore. But there are seeds and hints of truth within it to make just enough to make you think, this isn't a lie. That has been his tactic all along. And so if you put that in the personification of what empire does, you see that there's money to be made. There's profit to be made in it, right? There is money to be made in subjugating other human beings of other cultures, of other civilizations. There is a lot of good things to be made. The whore of Babylon has, throughout history, shown up and invited the world to her and said, hey, find your happiness here. Find power here. Find wealth here. Find influence here. Find what you want out of life here with me. And she has set up her residence in different cities throughout history, whether it was Rome in John's day, or Constantinople a little later, or Paris under Napoleon, or London under the kings. Like we've seen it throughout history. The whore of Babylon has set up shop and invited the world to partake with her. And people have gotten rich with her. People have found happiness with her. People have found power and found influence. In a sense, her lies weren't lies, because what she offered, she really offered. But it was always at the expense of their humanity. It was always at the expense of other human beings. And the line there where it lists all the things that she traded with, the very last one was human bodies. And I think John was making a big statement there, especially from that first century world point of view, because they, at times, the Roman Empire, a third of the population were slaves. Next to them, a lot of those Christians were slaves. They understood that this wasn't just a metaphor, that it wasn't just costing them their spirit or their humanity. It was costing people their actual lives. Rome was built on the backs of slaves. And empires throughout history have been built on the backs of slaves, even to this day. We're coming up on the Qatari World Cup, right? If you're unaware, World Cup, biggest sporting event every 4 years. It's even bigger than the Olympics, I'm pretty sure. And, you know, at about 2 cycles beforehand, cities make bids onto or countries make bids as to hosting the World Cup. And Qatar won this year's. Qatar is in the Middle East. It is on the Saudi Arabian Peninsula. It is an ally of the West because of its exports, mostly natural gas, but among other exports. But Qatar has a very small population base. And so in order for them to host the World Cup, they have to build all these stadiums in the desert, 130, 140 degree heat. So what do? They've imported lots and lots of workers from India and Bangladesh and Southern Asia. And the human rights record has been atrocious. These imported workers are suffering and dying by the thousands. It's documented. It's not a hearsay. The wealthy nation has used essentially slaves to build this World Cup. I mean, it's to the point that the Denmark national soccer team, their kits that they came out with are monotone. Like, it still has their crest on it, still has their country name on it, still has the player's name on the back, still has the numbers, but all those things that are on it are the same color as the shirt. They're doing that in protest of this abuse. That is an example of a modern-day Whore of Babylon. The Qatari nation has taken up residence with her. They want the influence, they want the wealth, they want the power, but they are 100% okay doing it at the expense of humanity. That is the way the Whore of Babylon works. It is a lie of the devil. It is good to make money. It is good to host the World Cup. It is good to do all of these things. But that invitation comes with a cost of human lives. And so we see over and over this pattern throughout history. And it's happened in pretty much every first world nation, any nations that have true power, true influence, true wealth. That in some instances, they have all, including our own, fallen victim to the Whore of Babylon's invitation. And we see through the laments of the merchants and the kings that they truly lament that she's lost because they've lost what they had. But you got to remember that the whole point of Revelation is to encourage people, encourage Christians, that God is going to bring about justice. That the murder and the suffering and the torments that she inflicts upon humanity, God is inflicting upon her. God is the good judge who will bring about justice. Her fall, in the end, will be permanent. That is what she's saying. When it says the angel threw the stone into the river, that is akin to what Jeremiah said. That is akin to what Jesus said. They both made prophecies just like that, saying that once you go down, you stay down, never to be seen again. When God finally brings about justice, there will be no more invitations from the Whore of Babylon. There will be no more abuse of humanity. And so the message for us today, living in 2022 or whenever you're watching this, is that we need to make sure we don't accept her invitation, right? The angel calls Christians living under her influence to come out of her. That way they don't get caught up in her punishments. That way they don't get embroiled in her sins. Because it's easy to. I like the World Cup. I will watch the World Cup probably. But I can't support what they're doing. I can't get caught up in their sins. So maybe I won't watch the World Cup. I don't know. But the point is that we as Christians have to make sure we are intentional, that we don't get caught up in what she has to offer. It's good to make money. It's good to build wealth. It's good to expand. It's good to create. It's good to subjugate the world around us. That's what we're created to do. And that's what we're going to do post-Judgment Day. But we have to make sure we don't do it at the expense of other human beings. And so my challenge to you this week is to start thinking in those terms, right? It's impossible to completely escape that, right? Like if you want to escape supporting slavery and child abuse or anything along those lines, well, I mean, you pretty much have to hand make everything you eat, everything you wear, everything you drive. Your phone, your cell phone, the camera I'm recording this microphone, my computer, everything. It's all connected together, and it's really, really, really hard to completely disconnect from anything that causes the abuse of other humans. But we're called to try. We're called to do our best. Because at the end of the day, God hates suffering. God hates the suffering of humanity. He simply wants what he designed this world to be for each and every one of us. And we're going to start looking at that. Next couple weeks, we're going to look at the monster itself being destroyed. We're going to look at Satan himself being destroyed. And then we're going to look at what God's ultimate plan for us is. What's post-Judgment Day going to look like? So I hope this is motivating to you. I hope this is something that causes you to think a little bit more along those lines of morality and what you support. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it'll cause you to say something, to do something. Because at the end of the day, what we do in this life matters. The good that we do will carry on. We're going to talk about that in a couple weeks. So if you have any questions, reach out. Otherwise, see you next week.